Cars and horses. When did horses give way to cars? Horses have historically been the quickest and most dependable means of covering great distances or doing challenging jobs with ease. Horses were employed for many things, including employment, transportation, and fighting. But nowadays, cars and other motorized vehicles handle the majority of such chores. Horses were first domesticated by humans roughly 6,000 years ago. As a result, we were able to exploit the strength and toughness of these creatures to advance society. Longer distance travel and easier farming operations were now possible for people. They originated in the Eurasian steppes and soon spread around the world. They were introduced by European explorers and colonists to places like America, where they swiftly adapted and played a significant role in both native and colonial life. Horses were an expensive, noisy form of transportation that also contributed to traffic, pollution, and accidents. They needed feed, stables, and vets, even if they didn't need gasoline, garages, or mechanics. Additionally, up to 30 pounds of excrement were produced daily by each horse. The consequence was an ever-present covering of dung that stuck to shoes, flew in the wind, and seeped into the water supply. Although abandoned cars are unsightly, in 1880 15,000 horses perished on the streets of New York City. Surprisingly, the rate of accidents involving horse-drawn carriages in the 19th century was comparable to that of automobiles in the 20th century in terms of accidents per capita. A few handcrafted horseless carriages made their way through Europe's congested streets in the 1880s, offering the first glimpse of a feasible transportation alternative. In order to move carriages, American inventors began experimenting with bicycle components, gasoline engines, and steam boilers in the 1890s. Their drivers appeared to be extraterrestrial beings as they wore full-length duster overcoats, goggles, and headgear. Following the turn of the century, cars started to become a part of daily life. A vehicle in 1901 was a slender, delicate-looking device with thin tires, an extended steering lever called a tiller, and an arm-braking hand crank starter. 11,235 vehicles were sold to American customers in 1903, the year Henry Ford launched Ford Motor Company. Ford turned on the first assembly line just 10 years later, in 1913, reducing the time it took to produce an automobile from 12 hours to 12 hours. In that year, the number of automobiles produced in the U.S. soared to 3.6 million, a 300-fold increase since Ford established his business. The nation was turning out 20 million cars annually by 1923. Of course, this stimulated demand for all of the raw materials and parts used in the manufacture and use of automobiles, including steel, rubber, glass, and oil. Early automobiles featured the steering wheel on the right, but experience quickly taught drivers to sit to the left so they could see the opposing traffic more clearly. It was fully implemented by 1914. Three classes of people had horseless carriages in those early days: the rich, who could afford the most advanced equipment; the mechanically competent, who could make their own; and physicians, who required prompt transportation at all times. Instead of selling urban horses, New York was the nation's largest vehicle market by 1917. On Broadway, supply shops offering tires, ignitions, speedometers, batteries, and carburetors took the place of shops that offered wagons, carriages, harnesses, and saddlery. Where the American Horse Exchange formerly stood, Ben Ford, General Motors, and Oldsmobile all have huge office buildings. For their workforces and to support America's expanding infatuation, repair shops, parking garages, petrol stations, and taxi services were in desperate need of fresh, qualified expertise. New firms and jobs were produced by the American auto sector. By the mid-1920s, the switch from horses to automobiles had been made in major part. In 1915, the number of blacksmiths in the cities was still quite high, hovering around 20 to 50. But at the peak of 1926, the number was considerably reduced, and in some cities it dropped from 24 to 4. A few trash collectors continued to use horses to draw their carts into the 1930s and beyond, but they were seen as weird holdouts of a bygone era. Nowadays, only parades and other special occasions feature the sound of horses' hooves clopping on pavement. Comment down below, subscribe, and comment down below. See you next time.